This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Hey guys, welcome to episode 190 of the Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda, and today's episode is sponsored by Live at Manning's Graph Data Science Conference. Now, if you're anything like me, a visual representation of data is very important, and nothing does it better than graphs. So please tune in to the Live at Manning Graph Data Science Conference this February 16th. That's coming up, guys. So February 16th to hear talks from data scientists explaining how, where, and why you should be using graph data to your advantage. You can register free by going to ageekleader.com/graph. Again, that's ageekleader.com/graph. And also on any of the Manning conference and events products, you can get a discount by using TCGraph21 to get 35% off. So check that out as well. You can find more information about that at ageekleader.com/graph. Thanks again, and don't forget to check out this Live at Manning Graph Data Science Conference. All right, Geek Leaders. Today on the show, I've got Robert Brabo, and he is the founder of Hale Media Group and the Brabo Center of Excellence. He's also the author of a book called From the Battlefield to the White House to the Boardroom, and the host of a podcast called The Bo and Luke Show, which I want you all to check out. I'll definitely link that up in the show notes as well. But he's had a career that goes through being in the military to working under both Bush and Obama at the White House. And now he's helping leaders like you and me learn more about leadership. So, Bo, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. It's a pleasure to be here for sure.
If you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about how you got started with what you're doing today, and what are you doing today?
Yeah, sure. So my journey goes all the way back to junior year in high school when I got recruited by an Army National Guard recruiter in the state of Michigan on career day. Back then we had these awesome career days. The school would bring in people from all different types of professions, and the one that seemed to be the most popular in my high school was the one that had all the military recruiters in it. They'd fill up the whole library, and we'd have several hundred students in there listening to them, and it got me really motivated. And they had this program where you could go to boot camp right after your junior year of high school, and then serve your one weekend a month while you were still a senior in high school, then do your individual training after you graduated, go to college, get the GI Bill, all that good stuff. So that's what I did. The recruiter pumped me up. I got motivated. I joined the Army National Guard, and 6 years later, after undergrad, I went on active duty, and that lasted for 20 years, which took me to the White House during that time period. As you mentioned in the opening, I retired in 2013 and went into corporate America and as an HR executive and business owner. And then now for almost a year, I've been on my own with Hale Media Group and in leadership development. And my book came out in February of last year, and keynote speaking and e-learning. We launched our e-learning platform January 1st of this year, all in helping others. Same with the podcast, all in helping others develop their own abilities around leadership, and especially leadership within the human resources profession. It's what I've been all about. It's what I'm doing. I think I'm in that portfolio career aspect of now giving back after 30 plus years in the working world, to give back everything that has been given to me since. All that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I found when I started this podcast, 4 or 5 years ago, that I found very interesting is I did this to focus on technology and leaders in tech, and and one of the things that came out of it is I got offers from HR groups to come and speak at their conferences, and I never expected that. I always thought, I'll get offers from technology conferences, and I do, but I get probably just as many HR conferences asking me to come speak, like at SHRM. I done North Carolina SHRM, South Carolina SHRM, and it's all coming from HR groups, which is pretty cool, because I guess they are the focus of leaderships when it comes to organizations today.
Yeah, it's that's what's fascinating, right? Because a lot of HR departments, and even ones that I was part of, when the company's looking for like bringing about or creating a management training program or leadership
Mhm.
development program. A lot of the training when it comes to people comes to the HR department. But what's fascinating about that, John, is one of the reasons I created this e-learning platform and all the workshops and the teaching and stuff that I do personally. It's all centered on this problem, to solve this problem within human resources, in that Harvard Business Review several years ago came out with studies. CEOs around the globe uh, responded to their surveys that said they only thought 1 in 4 HR professionals was an actual leader.
Mm.
So 75% are viewed as administrators. So their complaint was HR leaders are not able to solve for today's business challenges. But then it's the HR departments that are looked at to do management training programs and so forth. So it's this kind of weird conundrum where, uh, when you think about it, corporate America, unless you're a big business with a big budget, there aren't too many official leadership development programs that stick with people throughout their tenure in a company. Uh,
Yeah.
and the military side of things, I had that for over 20 years. Formal, very formal leadership development. You're trained, you're tested, you're put back in your organization. Everybody's gone through that same training, and you find mentors and other leaders who have been there, done that. They're ahead of you, so you have these built-in mentors right there in your organization that help you along the way in your own leadership journey, and it sticks with you for the entire time you're in the organization. It's not a 1 week course or 2 weeks here or 2 weeks there. It sticks with you the whole time. I'm like, you know what? That's missing. People are on their own inside of human resource teams to go seek their own development for
Mhm.
most businesses in the U.S.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll never forget the first quote management training that I ever had as a new manager. I just got promoted to manage a web and mobile development team,
Uh-huh.
and the company had a formal management training. And we got in there, and they had different executives from the company come and speak, and they had an outside group come and give their little talk. And every executive, I noticed at the end of their talk, said, "If you need a mentor, or you're interested in mentorship, please reach out to me," because the
Uh-huh.
company did not have a formal mentorship program or
Right.
anything at that time.
Right.
So, me being new and not understanding how business works or people works, and kind of being kind of new to the whole situation, I emailed every single one of those or they were all SVPs or higher. I emailed every single one of them and asked them, "Hey, I'm interested in a mentor." You said email you, and there were 7 of them at the time. Only one of
Uh-huh.
them replied back and allowed me to be their mentor. The other ones,
That's funny.
I had one guy say, "Well, I'm going to retire in a year, and I'm not taking on anybody." I just said that
Uh-huh.
because HR told me I had to. And then another guy told
Interesting.
me, "You don't want me to be your mentor." He's like, I'm just, trying to do the least amount of work that I can." It's like,
Oh, wow.
what? It was crazy to hear some of the things that people would say. But
Yeah.
in the end, it was like, an HR group was tasked to put this thing together. They didn't really, ask the executives if they wanted mentors or not, or
Yeah.
mentees or not, and just kind of threw it out there. And it really was pretty terrible, to be honest with you. But and my understanding is
Interesting.
they've done a lot better now. But
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. That's good stuff.
another thing I've noticed throughout this podcast is interviewing. I've had generals and Navy SEALs and
Uh-huh.
lots of people from the military on. The military, they seem to do it right. They're not. They have it's a very separated from what is management and what is leadership. And
Yes.
and to you, what's the difference between a management and being a manager and being a leader?
I can sum that up in one sentence because I talk about this stuff all the time. And to keep it to when we're talking about this, or when I'm doing a speaking event, or even I do workshops for SHRM as well. Um, I start people with, you manage tasks and you lead people,
Mhm.
and then the conversation can go from there. So when you think about management, you might have the title manager. So I'm the shift manager, right? And that's fine. That's your duty title. But within your job, you have things that have to get done, right? All day long between you and your team, whoever is on your team. Um, all the tasks associated with those jobs, that's management. You have to manage who's doing what. You have to assign those tasks to people. You have to manage the schedule, who's coming to work, when they're going to start their shift, when they end their shift. They may have break times. You got to manage that. Make sure you have coverage in your office, a whole slew of different types of things depending upon your job. There are all these types of things that you have to manage. And one of the examples I use is like a project manager. So a project manager will have all of these resources and all of these people on their team, and maybe they're running their Gantt chart and they have this laundry list of project tasks that have to be completed. They've got their direct path, their indirect path, and things that have to be done and when they need to be done. That's management, and that project manager will manage that schedule. They'll manage the task list. They'll manage the communication schedule. They will manage the reporting. But then when it comes to the actual people, and doing those things and making sure that they get done on time and that they have what they need, they have to lead the people on the project team itself,
Mhm.
right? So the basics of leadership and caring about your team and inspiring your team and motivating your team, uh, that's the leadership aspect of the role, and it's all centered on people. Uh, all the tasks, all the non-people items, that's management from my perspective, and I think it's a good way to help people differentiate between the two.
Mhm.
Leadership is about your people. Management is about all the actual work that has to get done. And obviously, if you're in a position and you have people, you have to do both.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And you
yeah.
find that you'll see some really good project managers
Uh-huh.
from the task management perspective that aren't really good at motivating their team. They'll check all the boxes, have all their, Scrum artifacts or all
Yeah.
their charts and everything completed, but their team is underperforming. And
Yeah.
it all comes down to not being able to lead the people on the team.
You're absolutely right. And I love project management, and I love having project management infused even into my profession in human resources. And you're right. You can be fantastic. You might have the best looking Gantt charts and project reports, and you can explain everything about your project. But when it comes to actually performance of the project, that takes leadership.
Yeah, and it's
And
really hard sometimes to explain that to
yeah,
because they're like, I'm doing all the work, I'm working really hard. Yeah, you're working hard, but sometimes you're focusing on the wrong things. You know,
yeah, yeah. No, I
um,
agree completely.
one of the things you talk about is the PEDL leadership strategy. Can you talk about what that is and where
Yeah.
you came up with that?
Yeah, so I came up with this acronym PEDL, PEDL, based upon I was actually going to do a speech and run a workshop, and I was all within talking about leadership and moving forward and being cognizant of everything that's happening around you. And I kind of came up with I was thinking of a bicycle. You pedal a bicycle, and as you're pedaling the bicycle, it'll keep moving forward. But if you coast and you just let the bike roll and you stop pedaling, eventually the bike's going to stop. It'll come
Mhm.
to an end and you're going to fall over and crash. So in leadership, I use the term pedal, participate, engage, discuss, and learn as a continuum, as like a cycle that leaders should go through and should help their people go through. And participate, for me, participate is showing up. You got to be present each and every day. You got to be present with your team. I literally just saw a meme this morning. It was a home office and the chair was empty, and the meme was, "This is supposed to be my boss hard at work," and everybody working from home, right? And the chair is empty, so
So
they
when you
couldn't get
said
a hold of
that,
their boss. Huh?
when you said a meme with a chair, I thought it was going to be Bernie Sanders. I just
No, that's no. This was a different one. Um, but it reminded me of my acronym pedal. It's like participate. You got to show up. So as a leader, you
Yep.
got to be present. You have to, you have to be there for your team, and then engage. Engage is making sure that you are providing all the resources for your team to be as successful as possible, that you are creating an environment for them, you're empowering them to do their job to the best of their ability, giving them the tools they need, and so forth. And then discuss is creating that open forum for everybody to talk on your team, giving people the opportunity to share their feedback, to come up with or share their ideas, and so forth. Be innovative and creative, and in a very non-judgmental type of environment, so that you can truly get the best creative maybe in updates to processes that you have or new products you want to bring to market, new services, whatever the case might be. So it's important to talk and to have open discussion. And then through all of that, L is learning. Everybody learns. The leader provides the environment. Everybody's talking, engaged and talking, and everybody's going to learn from what's being said. And that's how you'll truly, one of the ways you truly come out with and build high performing teams that build trust and confidence in each other. They build the camaraderie and the teamwork, collaboration, is by leaders who go through that type of cycle and actually create that environment, and encourage and inspire people to be engaged and talk.
Yeah. So let me ask you some questions when it comes to doing this pedal strategy during
Yeah,
COVID, because it was really easy, in my opinion, outside of when we're all in the office together and you could kind
yeah,
of walk around and people saw you on the floor, saw you being present. You were able to talk to people and engage with them. Talk about the things outside of work as well as the things within work and what they're doing. You're able to set up those one-on-one times where it was,
sure.
we always did walking one-on-ones. We'd walk around the pond outside the office building and things like that.
Uh-huh.
When you're remote, how do you do that without seeming like you're micromanaging? What's the
Sure.
trick there?
Well, what is interesting, COVID kind of put this on everybody, right?
Mhm.
Or on many people that had never experienced this before. But working remotely for some people has been a way of life for years. I ran project teams and I had members in multiple states, but we still performed the project. So I think it was during COVID, over the past almost year and even going into the future, it really, you have to take the tools that you have, the tools that you most likely now have, like this, like Zoom, and you have to be very purposeful in scheduling this time. So one-on-ones aren't walks around the lake outside. They're a 15-minute or whatever Zoom meeting. And oh, by the way, make sure you have video turned on so you can see people, right? And you can make eye contact with them. It's about as close to in person as you're going to get. But you, as the leader, you have to be purposeful and intentful with doing that now more than ever, because the person's not just sitting in the office next to you or the cubicle next to you, right?
Mhm.
They, you have, if you see them when you're in the office, you see them, it might trigger you to say, oh, I need to stop and have a one-on-one or grab them and go grab a coffee or walk or go for a walk. When they're not there and you don't physically see them, then it's calendar blocking and putting that time in your schedule to make sure that you do that. And you have to do it. It's the only way to keep your team as cohesive as possible during these times. And that includes texting, talking on the phone, and so forth, one-on-ones, team events,
Mhm.
team time together on video conferences and so forth. Not just to talk about work, but to have these types of sessions and engaging sessions, just to find out how people are doing, and so forth.
Yeah, I think the team events is kind of a hard thing to do, but I've seen some really good examples of people having like a happy hour with their team at 4, or
Yeah.
my wife, she leads a group of project managers, and one of the things she does is she does lunch every Friday with her team, where everybody makes a dish and they talk about what they made and they have lunch together. And people,
Yep.
some people would just take the easy route out and go pick up Chick-fil-A, and other people will, do something kind of crazy. They'll make,
Yeah.
breakfast for lunch or something like that. Talk about it.
Yeah, those are great things to keep people, try and keep spirits up, keep people engaged, let people see each other, because we're humans and we like to engage with other people, and it's important to do that as much as possible, even if you're remote, before you're heading back into the office.
Mhm. So tell me about this book, The
Uh,
Battlefield to the White House to the Border. We've already talked a little bit about your military career.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk a little bit about this White House. What was it
Yeah.
like working for the White House, to where you had, your ultimate boss being the president of the United States?
Yeah, that was, of course, it was the highlight of my it's been the highlight of my career. So 8 years 8 years of my time, the last 8 years I spent on active duty, as the chief of HR operations for White House Communications, but then also the opportunity to be a presidential communications officer and lead teams for President Bush and President Obama is truly, it's a once in a lifetime type of deal. And I could not be more grateful to have had that opportunity. And you know what it did for me, and what I try to, I take that time and now I infuse that into my own training and teaching and stuff that I try to help others with and their leadership ability. Um, Leading teams at the highest level for the commander in chief really, really helped me focus on setting priorities, double checking, triple checking, having the checklist, having the operating procedures, having the systems in place to ensure that you can execute on a moment's notice without rehearsal type of deal. And in what we call the zero defect environment, it really helped me, be organized, for more than what I ever was in the past before then. And oh, by the way, we talk about in corporate America a lot about the importance of empowering your people, which can be a challenge for some. Well, when you are running a team for the president, and there's you have your laundry list of tasks that have to be done. And just to give an example, if the president shows up in let's say Miami for a speaking event on a Friday, the team that supports that event arrived the Saturday prior, so it's about a 7-day window. So in the 6 days leading up to the president arriving, I mean, everything's getting put in place. Radio infrastructure, all the audio visual stuff's getting set up at the event site. There's just a whole bunch of stuff happening so that the president and his entire team with the White House, when they get to Miami, they have all the same capability they have as if they were sitting inside the White House. From our aspect was the communication side. So you're talking secure, non-secure telephone, audio visual, information technology, all of that with no degradation in service just because they're sitting in Miami. So you have about 6 days to get this done. If you're a micromanager, or if you don't have the ability to empower your team to do the things that they need to do, because it's about a 15 to 20 person team supporting this event just from the communication side. There's absolutely no way you're getting all the tasks done in 6 days. It's not going to happen. There's too many. And so people have expertise in different areas. They have to be able to get their work done. So there's trust and verify and the constant checking in, making sure people are using their checklists and so forth. And you're, double and triple checking equipment, make sure it works, and the communication that you have with your team and so forth. Because when the president shows up, it's game time. The president never steps up to a microphone and says, okay, this is a rehearsal, test 1, test 2. That doesn't happen. That stuff has to go off without a hitch the moment he steps up there to speak. So I can't emphasize enough for anybody listening, if you're in a leadership position and you have a team and you're trying to get them at a high level of performance, you got to work on empowering them to do the jobs that you hired them to do, and then use your training and trust what they're doing, but verify what they're doing. Because there's a big difference between trust and verify than actually doing the work for them and being a micromanager. You have to open up the floodgates for them to make mistakes, learn from the mistakes, and so forth, so that they can build upon their own expertise and be a super valuable part of the team.
Yeah, I have to say that was one of the harder things when it came to leading people, was to let them fail when you knew, you don't want to overstep and, micromanage, but
Yeah.
you said, okay, this is not a critical failure. Let me let this failure go. and kind of then go back and say, look, here's what you did. Here, what was the result? What was, what could you have done better? And kind of let them learn for themselves. Because if you just tell them all the time, there's no learning going on there.
No, you're absolutely right. There's not. And it's tough. That's why leadership is tough, because you have to be able to, if you truly want to build a high performing team, people have to be able to, I'm not saying you let them make the same mistake over and over and over again. No, that's not what you're after. But they're going to make mistakes. And then you have those sessions where you train them and you make sure they understand what went wrong, what they need to fix for the next time, and then they don't make that same mistake again. And that's how they grow. It's leadership's responsibility to grow the next generation of leaders. And there's just certain risks you have to take. And
Yeah.
I think, as just like you said, at some, you've made it, each leader's made it to their own position for certain reasons and taking risk. So it's all about performing the right type of risk management, and where you can, where you can let your team not slide, but, you can take more risk with them doing certain actions because it's maybe a lower risk on the probability of a certain outcome or whatever the case might be, and giving them the latitude to learn from their mistakes.
So, what was it like when when the transition happened between Bush and Obama? I mean, because you look at a Republican and then a
Yeah.
Democrat. Was there a big difference in how your communications and everything worked, or was it kind of the same thing, just business as usual?
Well, it's so from the communications aspect, or even anything in and I write a little bit about this in my book. When you think about the White House in general, it's a business office. It's this big machine that has to run every day, and there's several thousand people that support the administration directly that don't change just because the political administration changes.
Hmm.
So the where I was part of, the White House military office, um, it's filled with Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. Like Air Force One is, of course, something everybody's aware of. The plane the president flies in. Marine Corps One, the helicopter. Um, but then you have these other groups that are part of this, and they don't change. So like the service or the support that you're delivering to the office of the president and the vice president, first lady, White House staff, Secret Service, that the support doesn't change. So the dynamics that change are the people. And so it's building new relationships. It's getting into the dynamics of a different administration and how they think. And you have a responsibility to educate them, because, the biggest thing I saw, John, which is fun, especially when you're someone like myself and you like to help and build people and train them and so forth, is watching them. It's really fascinating watching this team go from a campaign team to the ones that then follow the president into the office, that he brings with them, and becomes part of his administration, his official administration, and training them like, hey, now you're part of the executive branch of the government, and there's certain things that you now have to do differently than when you're just on the campaign trail. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Um,
So that's where you see the most, the dynamics is in the people, and because they're all new, and there's some fear and trepidation. They don't know what's happening, and it's like going to, your biggest, imagine you getting the biggest job of your life, in the first few months on that job, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of pressure there too.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the e-learning programs that you put together, and you talk about leadership, and I know it's mostly
Uh-huh.
focused toward human resources, but how is e-learning when it comes to leadership?
Yeah.
How does that work? Or what can
It's
someone
yeah,
expect going through that?
sure. So we launched the Brabo Center of Excellence, and each month is, so just launched January 1st with 5 core courses on leadership, all around leadership and human resources, to solve for the problem, to build leaders within HR that can solve for today's business challenges. So, and doing that in an e-learning platform, one of the differences, it's not your typical, the courses are not your typical courses where you're just going to be uh, walking through an animated PowerPoint or an
Mhm.
animated slide deck. They're video lectures, that the person. It's almost like, if you would say, you could kind of equate it to a recorded webinar, where you're getting the actual instruction in the video lecture from the instructor themselves,
Mhm.
uh, and that's probably the best way. I took it from the vantage of teaching workshops for SHRM, like we were talking about earlier, in that you're teaching a crowd or a group. Only in this format, it's teaching whoever purchases the course. And we got our company, we're a fully approved provider by SHRM and HRCI, so people get their recertification credits when they take a course. But literally, and everything that we're rolling out. So like in February, we've got talent management courses coming out, with a focus not just on, hey, this is recruiting, this is how you manage talent, this is talent acquisition, this is what it means to be outsourced if you outsource to a staffing agency, different aspects around recruiting and filling seats in your company, but the actual leadership therein. The working within your company to understand the strategy, so that you actually go out and find and seek and find the right talent for your company. And what does that look like? What are the types of things, if you're in the leadership position in human resources, what are the types of things that would be greatly beneficial to you to do inside your organization to actually execute and lead a talent management program? So we're taking it beyond the skill set, beyond the skills, beyond the technical skills, and putting the leadership components inside the courses, so that when people tune in and they're listening and so forth, they'll be able to pull out that leadership development out of the lectures that they're listening to. And then in February, we are going to launch the live webinar series as well. So a way for people to get live interaction during the day, all for their own leadership development.
Awesome. I think that's a good approach, especially with COVID, because it kind of changes how you can do things. You have to learn a little bit differently and adapt. And I think the timing was excellent for this.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So when it comes to, learning more about leadership and growing under, and knowing the difference between management and leadership, which is always one of the big things that I run into when I'm talking to new leaders, is kind of how you go about making sure that you're getting your job done, you're getting all the tasks managed and getting all those completed, while still making sure you reserve enough time to also lead the people. And I know for me, when I first became a manager, it was like you were taking over a department. You had to learn not just who the people are, but also what tasks they're doing. And, how do you weigh which one's more important, because you have deadlines, you have projects coming due. And then you also have, people that need attention as well. So how would one go about managing that first, let's say 90 days of being a new manager, and making sure that they also lead their people properly?
Yeah, so I would recommend that. That's a great question, by the way. Those first 90 days, if you're a new manager, I think what's critically important for you is to start developing relationships internal, as quickly, be purposeful about it as quickly as you can. So regardless of the department or team that you are now managing, the faster that you can demonstrate that you care about your team and that you want to get to know your team and understand what they're doing in their jobs, but also understand them as people and individuals and where their strengths lie, the better off you'll be in a quicker fashion to then help determine what the priorities will be, or even if priorities come from above, and determining who are the best people to execute these priorities, and so forth. And it really takes purposeful action every day. So if you think about building systems, if you're a new manager, you're learning who your people are, then it's finding the systematic, or building the systematic approach on how you're going to tackle your day, and those systems that you put in place as a new manager will help you lead to achieving your goals, your milestones, and so forth. And it'll give you a framework for which to lead your team. Those are not easy tasks by any means, but then, you've been promoted to manager, so somebody saw something in you. So I would imagine that, you're the right kind of person to take on this new role. And where you're not finding the type of development internal to your company, then you got to read. You have to, in your spare time, whenever that is, you have to read leadership books, development, self-development type of books, join webinars, whatever the case might be, in order to find the type of information, education that you need to help you out as a new manager. Because depending on the organization, you just never know how much internal help or assistance there's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, going out. I know for me, it was all about TED Talks and leadership
Yeah.
books, Simon Sinek books and things like that, and getting as much content as I could. And then
Yep.
eventually starting this podcast so I could talk to, other leaders like you and, get some free advice.
Yeah. No, I get it.
And that leads me into my next question. So you and Luke started a podcast was a little over a year ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that show and kind of what you learned from that, and kind of what someone could expect if they listen to an episode or two?
Sure. So Luke and I started the Bo and Luke Show. Came out February of 2020. So we're almost a year in, and I think we've had 40, almost 50 episodes actually out on the air now. And people can, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Audible, Google Podcasts, wherever people listen to podcasts, you can get it. We designed the podcast, and our tagline is to help people be better, know better, and do better. And in the first, podcasts are interesting because you can basically do whatever you want. So we stopped our first season at 30 episodes, and we said, okay, we're going to do 30 episodes a season. And those 30 episodes had a theme of let's get after it. And all of the guests that we brought on the show, we had NFL athletes, former NFL athletes, and Olympian executives, former Army colonels, and so forth, individuals who had exemplified the behaviors of going after their dreams at all ages. So like age was not a boundary, whether they were 50 or they were 20. People who have had experienced the ups and downs, when they're really high on life and when they're really low in life, and how to get through those low times, and to just keep putting one foot in front of the other, to go after their dreams and stick to it, not quit, not give up. So that was like the theme of the first season. And then when we got into season 2, we've had some amazing business leaders, entrepreneurs. Our first guest was a huge luxury real estate broker out of California, international real estate broker, and actually is on the this season of Listing Impossible, the real estate show.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer Berman. But man, what she brought to the table, and the people that have followed her on teaching people things. So this season is let's learn something. So not only do you learn from their journey, but man, the tips, the tools, it's like if they wrote a book, you got it all delivered to you in 45 minutes on their podcast episode. And just incredible. This week's episode with Captain T, first African-American out of the state of South Carolina to go to the Air Force Academy, and then on. So he's a pilot, the Air Force, on to Delta Airlines as a pilot. And then he ran his own company and sold it. And just had a book come out. So these people that we've had on the show, John, and for everyone listening, man, it's, what they've accomplished. And when you listen to them, they surely didn't have anything handed to them. They just went after it every day, learned from their own lessons. And that's what I talked about earlier, man. When you empower your people, they make mistakes and they rise up, and what you're contributing to as a leader for that person is immeasurable.
Yeah.
Cause man, later in life, they'll look back and they'll look at you as the leader and say, man, I'm thankful for John, because he gave me the opportunity to fall. He picked me back up and built me up even better than I was before.
Yeah. Well, we're thankful for you both. Thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. How can people pick up a copy of your book and, and find the Bo and Luke Show?
Sure. So theboandlukeshow.com, pretty simple. Everything is there for the show, how to listen, all right there on the homepage. And robertbrabo.com is my website. That's where you can get in contact with me. Of course, if you want the book, if you want a signed copy, you can buy that through either my personal website or through the podcast website. But the book's also available on Amazon, of course, and Barnes and Noble. I think Books A Million online. So any of the book outlets, you can purchase it online for sure.
All right. We'll link that up on the show notes at geekleader.com. So you can always go there and click through and pick up the copy of the book, and also click through and find the Bo and Luke Show podcast. It'll be in there as well. Thanks again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. I feel like we covered a lot, and hopefully the people learned a lot.
Yeah. No, thank you, John. I greatly appreciate it. It's been fun.
If you enjoyed that episode, please leave a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. I'd greatly appreciate that. And also, don't forget to check out merch. We have some T-shirts that I've designed that are on at geekleader.com. You can click on the merchandise section there and check that out. And also, don't forget about the books from our guests. So if you like this guest and other guests that have written books, please go ahead and check that out at geekleader.com. I would greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure they would too.